Annie Thompson, and you are watching the Carlisle Cult Cinema Club. Please head over to our Facebook page and hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's me, PD, back with another Carlisle Cult Cinema Club Presents. And today we have a very special guest, Richard Stanley, the acclaimed South African filmmaker, renowned for his distinctive contributions to the horror genre. Richard's journey began with short films and music videos for the likes of Fields of the Nephilim. He soon captivated audience with his feature films Hardware and Dust Devil. He made headlines as the original director of The Island of Dr. Moreau, a project marked by drama and creative conflict, which is vividly recounted in the documentary Lost Souls Doomed Journey, Richard Stanley's Island of Moreau, which I wish that had been made. After 2 decades of hiatus from feature films, Richard came back with the 2019 H.P. Lovecraft Colour Out of Space, which is absolutely superb. So join us as we chat with Richard and have hopefully a good show. Welcome, Richard.
Oh, it's a pleasure being here, sir. Coming at you, live from my home in the French Pyrenees.
Which is, from photos and things I've seen, it looks lovely.
Yeah, it's definitely beautiful. Beautiful and, yeah, still mysterious and creepy even after all these years.
Well, that's good. That's good. And
Yeah.
I don't think a better man could live there.
Yeah, well, there's certainly never a dull moment. Never.
No, I can imagine. So, I mean, it's an absolute honor having you on the show, especially my little YouTube show. It's an absolute honor. But anyways, you started with kind of short films, rites of passage, and obviously a few music videos, Superfly Guy as well, S Express. What was that leap from, Phil, from the shorts and the music videos till you done Hardware?
I guess the big leap came on doing the Public Image Limited promo. The first stuff I did was John Lydon, because up to that point I'd been shooting on a Super 8 camera. It had never been more than a 1 or 2 man crew, and we'd never had much more equipment than a wheelchair. So it was really strictly amateur territory. We did build our own Steadicam when we started doing the music video work, but it was only when we did the first Public Image Limited job that suddenly I did the jump to a full union crew. And standing there that morning and seeing the honey wagon and the makeup vans and the different trailers rolling into the lot, and suddenly realizing that I had to basically command a crew of around 80 people in the big location. That was, I guess, my first step into professional filmmaking. And it took a few years from that point to get to Hardware. Hardware, like most movies, was kind of a non-recurring phenomena. I mean, movies happen, I think, from the top down rather than from the bottom up. So no matter how long you work, it's difficult to ever get the damn thing made until some fluke takes place, and so basically the equivalent of a lightning strike. After a few years of messing around, the Hardware script found its way into a conductive set of hands, and all of a sudden it got made, which was back in 1989.
Fantastic. I mean, what a great time as well for kind of horror films in general, because there's been some great stuff coming out in the 80s. And you were coming out on the wave of that because it came out in 1990. I saw it on VHS in England when it was released. Way back in 1990. I was a little bit too young. I'd been 14 at the time, 15 when it came out.
I think that's the best age for it. I mean, when all's said and done, I still think 13 and 14 are kind of, yeah, almost the optimum ages to receive it. And it carried an age restriction. I'd even got an X rating when it first came out in the States, but X ratings still existed in those days. But I mean, back when I was a kid, movies that were X-rated held an irresistible allure to me. Kind of the moment I'd gone past 18, it was legal to actually see them. They seemed to completely dry up and stop mattering. So I think my target audience was always a few years under the age restriction, were the folk that I was, I guess, really trying to reach.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was a video nasties kid. I'd been brought up at that right age when VHS had first started, and no censorship in the house, so I was allowed to watch anything I wanted, basically. So I'd been watching the nasties, Cannibal Holocausts, and Anthropophagus, the Beast, and stuff like that, and Possession and the Beyond, and so I love my horror. So when this came out, plus big fan of 2000 AD as well. So and it just kind of combined everything brilliantly.
Yeah, I mean, I think hardware was drawing on every single thing that was going on at the time because there's an awful lot of stuff that got somehow sucked into it. And it was yeah a fascinating period that we were able to get like the title track from John Lydon, but also the this very early Ministry track with yeah Stigmata. So it was kind of right in a certain line, and then being able to draw in Iggy Pop, Lemmy from Motorhead, even Luciano Pavarotti contributed something free of charge to our soundtrack. It was a crazy vortice, and I think it was born out of the kind of late 80s direct to video exploitation material that was going on at the time. I mean, it's hardware is basically a lady creeping around in a darkened warehouse with an unseen monster kind of movie, and there were literally
Yeah,
hundreds of those going on in the late 80s. Married to I got the big idea really looking at Demons and Stage Fright. Demons by Lamberto Bava and Stage Fright was Miguel Soavi's first movie. That put the idea in my head that if we had a lifeless auditorium, as we did with the Roundhouse and the Rainbow in Finsbury Park, that we could basically shoot an entire movie in one location, provided it was the action was pretty contained. So and I also ported in Simon Boswell from the Stage Fright soundtrack. So very much a part of that milieu. And at the time when we were shooting it, I think we all assumed that a kind of a, a VHS video dustbin was kind of the logical home for the movie. We were all surprised when it got a as wide a theatrical release as it did.
oh, I mean, absolutely, and the soundtrack is superb, and you can see the whole lighting kind of thing from Roberto Bavo's Demons, which is a favourite of mine. I've got the mask somewhere from the film as well. I'm that kind of person. But yeah, you can see that kind of look, especially with the lighting, that Italian kind of lighting that Mario Bava kind of started back in, the when he was
Yeah,
about
yeah. I like to think of Bava as sort of the spiritual godfather of Dario Argento and stuff that came after.
100%.
Yeah, and I idolized Dario at that point in time. He was one of the first people I showed the movie to. Before we actually shot the film, I forced the entire crew to strap down in the Scala cinema, and I recall I projected three movies to them. We watched Suspiria by Dario Argento. We also watched Inferno, and at that point in time, I was very intrigued by a film called The Element of Crime, which was actually the very first Lars von Trier movie that had just been released, and it had
Right.
been hugely hated by by the folk at Palace who had acquired the rights. I remember didn't even want to do a telecine of it, and I looked at it and really liked the look and style of the movie. So I remember we ran Element of Crime. And then I think it was pretty much one moment in Inferno. It's when Irene Miracle is going down to the basement and lights the cigarette lighter to light her way down the staircase, and a light goes on the back wall, and then as she goes down, she steps out of the light, and I remember Steve, my DP, was like, "Oh, what the fuck? That's meant to be the light from her cigarette lighter. Why isn't it moving with her?" This kind of gave us the idea of hand holding the lights and moving the lights while we were actually shooting the movie, because I like the very shivery organic style of the
Yeah.
lighting in hardware, and that partly comes down to the fact that we're all standing behind the camera, literally moving the lights, shivering gels. We had a fan behind the camera, so I'd be blowing feathers and scraps of stuff into the frame, so there'd be things twirling and whirling around to try and keep the lighting scheme organic and mobile in the particularly in the film's middle where it's extremely dark. Yeah,
I
fun.
mean, absolutely. I mean, you can see all the influences, and it's such a. I mean, there's even kind of a slasher film vibe to it as well.
Oh yeah, there's clearly slasher film stuff in there. I mean, it kind of conforms to most of the tropes of a normal slasher movie. Stacey Travis is very much the last girl.
Yeah,
The final battle plays out in the shower cubicle, which is kind of a nod all the way back to Psycho and trying to turn the tables by killing the droid in the shower rather than killing the girl. Spoiler
yeah.
alert.
I mean, what an incredible cast. I mean, you got for your first film as well. And all of them were kind. I mean, it was just before Dylan kind of broke.
Yeah, I know, but very, very grateful for all of them. And yeah, Bill Hootkins is just kind of runs away with the movie as the sleazy voyeur character, which he
Yeah, his character's a bit kind of. You just every
which
time he's on screen,
he
you just
pretty,
want to wash.
yeah, and he pretty much improvised it, I have to say. So almost no two takes were alike. The crazy blisteringly obscene stuff that was coming out of Bill's mouth on every take was very hard for us all not to crack up laughing. But I'm also pretty sure that that's what got the movie an X rating on its first submission. It was probably Bill's improv dialogue as much as anything else in the movie.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a little because the likes of obviously mostly our generation are used to seeing him in the likes of Star Wars and Indiana Jones, and then I see him like that, and you kind of, whoa, it's like Jesus Christ! I just wasn't expecting him to when you first watch it. You're just not expecting him to come out with what he comes out with, and to know that he improvises, that's brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, Bill was a genius that way around. To try to balance the books, I cast him as a God-fearing, clean scrubbed, good cop in Dust Devil, just to try to show that Bill wasn't really the, the praised character that he portrayed in Hardware.
And he was great as he was fantastic in Dust Devil as well.
He was, but
Dust Devil's
the
such
part
a
wasn't as much
brilliant
fun.
film.
Yeah, I wish his part had been more fun though. I did recast Bill again as a Russian freighter captain in Island of Dr. Moreau, but none of his scenes made it into the complete movie.
Oh, which is such a shame. Which is such a shame. Um, so I mean, another big thing with hardware was the graphics, the computer graphics, because that was all fantastic. Because it was stuff that we hadn't really seen like that before.
It's one of the weird little details about Hardware is it's basically an Android AI movie made in an analog era before PCs even existed.
That's it.
So yeah, it's difficult to imagine that such a time period before cell phones and before home computers was ever really a thing, but it was. The very very early wireframe animation was like done on a hijacked school computer. I mean, I think the average age on set on hardware is probably around 18. I know that Chris Cunningham, little Chris, who was doing the gore, turned 16 on the movie, so he was 15 when we started shooting. Yeah, the animation literally was done on a school computer. But then the bit that I'm pretty proud of still is in the trip sequence in Moe's death dream, which is probably the part of hardware that's least like anything else and most like its own thing.
Well,
Yeah, that features some material involving the Mandelbrot set, which at that point in time was, I think, the first animated move through the Mandelbrot set that had ever been seen. It took weeks to actually capture with a camera literally wired to taped to a computer underneath a towel in a dark space in the corner of a guy named Nic Cagne's flat. But we did succeed in creating a brief animated journey through a part of this equation, which was a step
fantastic.
into fractal geometry, which was something that I think wasn't entirely new at that point in time, being late 1989 when we were shooting.
And the other thing as well with hardware is it booked a lot of trends because obviously you killed off Dylan, about just over an hour into the film, which is the archetypical hero who you would expect to, you know, live to the end, defeat the robot, get the girl. But when you kill him off, that was also a great shocker because it was a twist on the normal.
Yeah, I do like to do that. And I guess hardware again was ahead of its time a little because I perceived it as being effectively, on some level, a feminist film. It was clear to me that Jill was the lead character in the movie. It's also was clear to me that all of the men in the movie basically just make things worse for her. Kind of fuck the situation up worse and worse throughout the film, which was, I think, hard baked into the film's intention. We can kind of feel it coming in the earlier argument between Mo and Joel, which was much fiercer in the original cut. That things are not going to really work out okay for these people. Yeah, I think also buried within hardware is an idea that all the characters who are tripping or slightly stoned survive better than the characters who are taking it straight. Jill
Yeah,
saved her marijuana twice in the course of the movie, and the only other person left standing at the end is Shades, who's tripping so far off his face that he doesn't know what's really going on, and thus is left alive at the end of the movie. Whereas Dylan's just too damn uptight to actually to actually make it.
yeah, yeah. Because again, it's usually the other way around. Everyone who gets stoned and having a good time and drinks or has sex or blah blah blah, they die. So
Yeah, this always
that's
struck me as being unfair and also
yeah,
not true to life. Really not true to life. I mean, in any kind of war, disaster, crisis situation, you will find that it's the drunk and the stoned people who hold up better. It's something I've kind of noticed. I mean, major conflicts are generally fought by stoned people. Even I think even Adolf Hitler was snorting coke and anything he could get his hands on, and all my experiences with in South Africa or Afghanistan, it was clear to me that it was only the folk who were fully stoned or really had a different perception of what was going on who weren't cracking or scared out of their minds.
very true, very true. That's why I still partake myself. It's got to be done. Got to be done. Plus, it does help my condition.
Yeah, I just wanted to turn that cliche around, I guess, when we were shooting the movie. It was something
No,
that
it's
needed to be
excellent.
addressed.
Moving on to Dust Devil, 92, absolutely fantastic. I know we got it butchered over here to 87 minutes originally. But it was still a great film. But when I got to see the full version on DVD years later, it absolutely blew my mind because there was all the supernatural stuff put back in. Um, and it just changed the movie so much and made it so much better. And as I say, I'd enjoyed the original version, but then just got it so much more when I finally watched the or what they call the final cut. Just absolutely brilliant.
I'm, I'm glad you managed to catch up with it, sir, because yeah, Dust Devil's always been a little difficult just because of the existence of the so-called Miramax cut,
Yeah,
which tends to make it a much shallower and kind of nonsensical movie. A lot of things lose their point in the Miramax cut. Plus, weirdly, the Miramax cut's kind of slower as well. It has the effect of feeling not quite as fast paced because some of the scenes are more slackly cut together than they are in the final cut. It's a weird beast. It's shorter but kind of less pacey. But yeah, I mean, it happened for a number of reasons. But as we all know, one of Harvey Weinstein's many crimes against cinema was his habit of absolutely mutilating
yeah.
films that he just. There were a lot of films that suffered under the regime of what we used to call him Harvey Scissorhands.
I was just about to
And
say that's what his nickname was.
that's right. And there's a lot of films that got hacked to pieces by Harvey that I really wish would get put back together again one day and yeah, rediscovered that people would
Yeah,
investigate some of those things. I mean, one example off the top of my head is say Map of the Human Heart by Vincent Ward, which got altered beyond belief, including revoicing the lead characters on its release. And being something of a Vincent Ward fan, I'd like to see that one put back together again.
yeah. He
So
did he did butcher quite a lot of horror. He wasn't considering he started his career making The Burning. You know what I mean? He was the producer on The Burning, and that was what kind of made money for him.
yeah,
Didn't
and that
seem to like horror, and he always seemed to butcher horror.
well, yeah, he understood it on a burning level. The Burning was the film which gifted the world with Harvey Weinstein because that's how he, I guess, got his claws into the industry. But he always understood that because he pushed throughout both movies to have more kids, more scenes with kids taking their clothes off and getting killed.
Mm,
It always bummed him that we didn't have any teenagers getting killed in Hardware and or in Dust Devil. And on both productions, he pushed hard to have more more deaths. He understood the Friday the 13th formula, and I think
yeah,
if he'd had his way, there would have been one person skinny dipping and getting killed every half hour or so, which is something that I deliberately frustrated him on. It got so bad that on Hardware they literally shot scenes with teenagers, which I refused to work on. They took 2 days out of my schedule and shot a bunch of scenes that had been specially scripted for Harvey, and of course they then discovered they couldn't cut them into the movie; that they naturally fell out of
yeah,
the structure again. And he pushed so hard to have an extra killing on Dust Devil that we eventually shot one. And a scene which is, I think, deleted even in the longer final cut. But I made certain that when we did have one more scene, that it was involved a full male kiss. That the victim was in fact a guy named Steve Earnhardt, who was the executive in charge of production for Miramax, and we shot a very nice death scene with him where Hitch, it was a single take with them up against the sunset, and Hitch comes up to him, they turn, there's a profile, they kiss, and he kills him and he dies in his arms. And we sent back the footage of Robert kissing and killing Steve, and Harvey, of course, had a full meltdown and responded badly. Responded by firing Steve Earnhardt off the production, which
Oh dear.
yeah, was unfortunate for Steve. And yeah, this was came out of this constant push me pull you of him wanting more killings, and I was absolutely refused to yeah kill another woman or to kill another kid. So when we did do another killing, I killed the Miramax executive in charge of production.
I mean, Robert Burke is absolutely I mean, the whole cast, to be fair, is excellent in Dust Devil. And when I finally got to see the one with the whole all the mysticism put back in there, obviously that must have been a lot of it from your time growing up in South Africa. There must have been folklores and things
Yeah,
like that.
Yeah, it's basically a love letter and it's an answer to the question that everyone asked me every day for pretty much all of the 80s into the early 90s, which is whenever I got introduced to folk that said, oh, this is Richard, he's from South Africa. It was the time of like Lethal Weapon 3, I think. Immediately you'd sense a sort of hardening of people's attitudes. Usually, first up, someone would ask me, well, what do I think of the situation in South Africa, or what's my point of view
Yeah,
of it? And they asked me that so often to the way Dust Devil was the answer. It was the whole movie is like, okay, this is kind of what I think about my home country. It was a letter addressed to yeah all those issues, and the part of the problem with the Miramax cut was that yeah, bless his socks, Harvey simply did not understand the South African accents. When it came to the characters that were actually played by South African actors, notably John Matshikiza and Zakes Mackay, I think they really battled to understand what they were saying. It was a similar time period to when they dubbed Road Warrior into American when they released
yeah,
it in the US because folk couldn't understand the Aussie accents. So they did actually battle with the to comprehend what the South African characters were even saying. Beyond being a slasher movie, Dust Devil has ambitions to being a kind of a snapshot of that point in time and a portrait of the whole country. So there's a huge amount of socio-political stuff floating around
yeah.
the corners of the movie, which Miramax just didn't know what to do with. So they responded by cutting most of it out. They basically dropped almost everything with the Zakes Mackay character, which yeah, when he wasn't interacting directly with Robert and Chelsea, and tried to make it back into more of a linear Hitcher style yeah road movie slasher. And yeah, Dust Devil had ambitions beyond that. It also wanted to be a an African Western sort of Faustian road movie, love story, drive-in movie of some sort.
Well, you can see that westerns are a little bit of an influence on your style, especially in your first two movies. So I've got to ask, what's your favorite western?
So hard to say. I'm always at war with my love for spaghetti westerns and my deep, deep love for the work of Sam Peckinpah. I mean,
Hmm.
like everyone on earth, I worship at the shrine of the Wild Bunch. And I also love Ride the High Country very deeply. Have a lot of respect for Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid. I mean, like everyone else, I was knocked out by Sergio Leone. I don't
Hmm.
think it's possible to experience Leone's work in the present day in quite the same way that we did when it first came out. I mean, I'm just old enough to have been growing up in the 70s. Got to see Good, the Bad, and the Ugly on a CinemaScope screen, which was
Oh,
yeah the size of a skyscraper, like huge, the size of a building. with that big sound back in the CinemaScope auditorium. The sheer size of like Clint Eastwood's eyes. Uh, there's nothing like that watching it reduced to a telephone or to a computer screen. The sheer insane power of Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and the um, the initial spaghettis is diminished now. It's hard for folk to quite comprehend. Just how big that seemed at the time.
Yeah, I like me spaghetti westerns. I must admit. Obviously, the Sergio Leone stuff, but Big Good and Down's an absolute cracker, and Dave Anger's another belter as well that I watch quite often.
Yeah, I've got a big spot for Quien Sabe, A Bullet for a General too, by Damio Damiani. If you want to get to ones that folk don't watch as often.
Yeah, true, true. I do. I like
Big
quite a
songs.
lot of the Italian stuff. I like a lot of the crime films as well as the horror stuff they've done. Because they've just
One of
done
the
so
things.
much great stuff.
Yeah, I know so many movies that are making like
Yeah,
300 spaghetti westerns a year. I mean, my God, I could have made three spaghetti westerns a year in that climate. It's unbelievable. One of the great things, along with all the crime thrillers, is that there's so damn many of them that I know that there'll still be new ones that I haven't seen right to the end of my life. There'll still be
yeah, that's
titles
it.
that I'll be seeking out. And it remains a territory where there's unknown movies and films that I have not yet had time to find or see. So yeah, it's full of buried treasure.
It is definitely. Um, so I mean, we've talked about the Dust Devil and how Harvey Weinstein absolutely cut it to shreds, which was a great shame. I mean, when I first saw it, it kind of felt more like The Hitcher
Well, the
because of the
Hitcher was
way it
kind
had
of
been
good for
cut.
us. Yeah, I mean, the Hitcher impacted on Dust Devil quite strongly because Dust Devil was really the first idea I had for a movie back when I was about 15.
Right.
I wanted to shoot it in South Africa. We thought, what's the cheapest thing we can think of? And I thought, okay, why don't we do a movie where the girl's driving my red Volkswagen and she picks up the devil? We got a young local rock star, Russell Copley, from a band named Euthanasia to play the devil, and we started shooting it on 16 millimeter just because it seemed like a way of using the landscape, something we could do without having a set or really any props. So it seemed like a simple idea when we got involved. And by the time it came to actually remaking it in 35 millimeter, I think some part of me had been locked in single set all the way through hardware, shooting in Jill's apartment. And we'd had pretty bad reviews on hardware, kind of lukewarm to bad. Most of the bad reviews, you should never read your own reviews. Basically, said that the movie was like a video game that talks dirty or was cut like a music video. And this made me want to shoot Dust Devil in slow, continuous takes, and also to make it into something like a real movie, a kind of a Once Upon a Time in Africa. Even though we hadn't got a
Yeah.
lot of money, but I knew that I had to have a steam train, I had to have a Luma crane. I need flying shots, and something which was going to really have a very widescreen, expansive canvas by comparison to the very cramped interiors and with some hardware because the droid was such a pain in the ass to work with. Most of the time it was just a head on a stick or a hand on a stick. It meant we couldn't really shoot a master take. Everything in
Yeah.
hardware was made out of montage and fast little cuts to try to sell the action. So we were kind of forced into a rapid fire editing style. So again, Dust Devil was kind of a reaction to that. I thought, let's try and do the opposite and do something which is mostly in very slow Leone or Tarkovsky-esque old-fashioned 35 millimeter dolly work, which results in the very strange, nightmarish, Once Upon a Time in South Africa movie that we have today.
which I've watched all your films again just on the run up to the interview over the last couple of days, and
Brave man. Yeah.
still thoroughly enjoying them. They still stand up brilliantly. And then obviously we've got to talk about Island of Dr. Moreau. I wish we'd seen your vision.
Yeah, me too. I sure wish that I could have realized that. I hope that someday someone succeeds in doing something great with the material, because I still think H.G. Wells has been poorly served by cinema.
Yeah,
His work's been consistently misunderstood and kind of misadapted, and it's a shame.
yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, I'd love to see a good version of War of the Worlds done, proper Victorian version of War of the Worlds and things done as well.
Yeah, they
But
keep trying, and it's always sort of lackluster. Like they keep sort of missing the point. I mean, and I just reread the whole of the Time Machine out loud to my partner Simona, because she'd never encountered the Time Machine, and
right,
she'd been bugging me about great short stories and great novellas and truly great examples of the literary craft. And I finally went, right, okay, you've never read the Time Machine, sit down, because it's great. Going through that again just made me wish that Andrei Tarkovsky had adapted it, or someone who had approached the material who could
yeah.
really have conveyed the emotions in that text, because it's a strong piece of work.
Mm. No one's ever got him quite right. I mean, I do enjoy the '60s film with was it Rod Taylor?
Yeah, I mean
Um,
it's fun,
yeah,
but boy, does it miss the cosmic horror and the
yeah,
cosmicism by a million miles. Nor is it really the Eloi and the Morlocks quite as as you'd want them. But the whole way the story unpacks the isolation of the time traveler, and then the extremely cosmic view of the end
yeah,
of everything within the story is something I don't think almost any filmmaker has touched. It's conjured quite nicely in that movie, The Quiet Earth, which is
oh, great film.
The Quiet Earth kind of steals the end of the Wells novella, and does it really nicely at the
Yeah,
last couple of shots of that movie. But it's very far from the mood of the Rod Taylor movie, which is much more of a sort of Jules Verne'sy
yeah,
kind of almost family friendly entertainment, rather than the Tarkovsky-esque meditation on humankind's true position in the universe that Wells is driving at.
yeah.
And it's
So, what first drew you to the island, Dr. Moreau?
Well, the first thing that drew me to it was the bright red cover on the edition that turned up in my father's bookcase. When I was about 4 years old or 5 years old, I felt my hand drawn by the red spine of this book, which was a copy, a first edition printed by something called Every Man's Colonial Library, for
Right,
distribution. For distribution only in India and the colonies. Oh, there it was, bright red, with one plate showing Prendick spying on the Beast People as you open the book, and because it was bright red and had this picture of the Beast People, and also because as a young child, every time I took it down, my parents would go, "Oh no, that's too much. That's too adult for you. Not yet," and take it out of my hands. Meant that I developed a growing passion to read the book. I guess that grew me into the Moreauverse, and then I completely moved, horrified, and engaged by the book. I of course rushed as a child to see the Michael York Lancaster adaptation that came out somewhere back then. being a fan of the book, was incredibly disappointed and came out of the movie thinking for the first time, shit, I wish someone did a better job with the material.
Yeah.
And that planted the idea in my head, I think, that the story needed to be readapted, and that Wells's core themes needed to be articulated in a way that
Yeah.
they hadn't been.
I mean, I know we didn't get your complete and utter final vision, but at least we got a lot of your designs.
Yeah, I mean, it's the existing movie is all the difference between a lucid dream and a nightmare.
Yeah.
Like the lucid dream, you're in charge of that shit. A nightmare, it's all in the wrong order and in places you wouldn't normally expect it to be, and doing shit that it shouldn't be doing, but it's all kind of familiar in a grotesque way.
Yeah,
So yeah,
true,
it's
true. I
great.
mean, is it true you sneaked back onto the set?
Yeah, this is true. And it should be said as well that to date, no one honestly knows the full truth of what happened on the island of Dr. Moreau, because the existing documentary, Lost Soul, by David Gregory, is very good and it's very funny, which I like, but it's still only the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah,
And moreover, it's sadly so, but three-quarters of the people in that documentary, if not all of them, are lying, just a little. Almost everyone is lying a little, has slightly repositioned the events in a way that is slightly off. They've all got little motives, like James Spardoletti, the first AD, has got his motive to doctor the facts a little. The sum total is it gives a sense of what was happening, but at the same time, it's still not. It
yeah,
doesn't approach the full bore insanity of what the experience was actually like. And I hope between now and yeah, Judgment Day to eventually get my own first-hand account of the Moreau affair into publication, because I would like the full story from my limited subjective point of view to eventually come out. But yeah, that effectively did happen. But in real life, what had happened was I was removed from the movie, and through a series of absurd circumstances, ended up effectively marooned out in the rainforest and basically living in a sort of pseudo tribal way with a bunch of folk living out in the tableland, and I had no desire whatsoever to come back. And I think at that point in time, where I had a sack of marijuana with me, my girlfriend, two dingo pups, and something like $150,000 dollars in cash. So there was kind of no reason to move from the rainforest,
yeah,
to leave the place we were at. And then after about 4 months, I saw a light further downriver. And I saw there were a bunch of people had made a campfire, and I went the next morning and found there were extras from the island of Dr. Moreau. And they told me that New Line Cinema had revived the production, that Frankenheimer was now attached, and they were actually attempting to shoot the movie again. And they told me what had been going on. And then they literally had their Stan Winston full head dog masks and bits of wardrobe. One of them said, "Hey, dude, why don't you take the mask and come with us to come and see what's going on for yourself? It's complete chaos. If you could see this, you'd feel a lot better about what happened." So yeah, they talked me into it, and went on set, and I was duly accepted as an extra. Became part of what was going on. Pretty much everyone who had been involved in the original version of the movie by then had been fired or had been let go. The original director of photography was a man named Dariusz Wolski, who is now shooting most of Ridley Scott stuff. And Dariusz was removed from the production same time as I was removed from the production, and had been replaced with Billy Fraker, William Fraker, who was shooting it for Frankenheimer. So when they removed Dariusz, they also removed all of Dariusz's people, and Fraker brought his own people. So pretty much no one on the crew was the same from when I'd been around. They had a different first AD. It was now James Spartaletti was the first. So nobody could recognize me. So beyond the first half hour, apart from the occasional lead actor and the producers who stayed far from the set, there was no actual reason to wear the dog mask. I didn't
Yeah.
have to wear the dog mask the whole time because nobody cared. Nobody knew who I was. A few people who did know who I was, Bill Hootkins and Ron Perlman, and mostly spent a lot of time playing cards and sitting around telling anecdotes.
That's just a brilliant story. That's fantastic that you went back on set. Because hadn't they dropped you off at the airport and you just disappeared?
That's the story that you get in Lost Soul,
Yeah,
but the reality was much stranger. It's just as reality tends to be. I mean, I got taken by the two Aussie security people that they sent after me, as in the documentary. They took me to the airport. They put me on the aeroplane, and I flew out. And I flew to Sydney, to Australia, to the nearest capital, basically. Then I got on the telephone and got myself a lawyer and started negotiating with New Line to get my pay or play deal because I believed
yeah,
that I'd been removed unfairly from production and had a right to claim compensation. So I did exactly what I was supposed to do. I got on the plane, flew to civilization, and started a lawsuit, which and that went on for a few weeks. And during this time, I lost contact with some of the folk back in when I left. Yet my partner was shutting up the house, and I was waiting to get all the stuff shipped down from Queensland, and most of the cast members were exiting too. Firuza Balk was supposed to rendezvous with me a week later in Sydney, and nobody showed up. Then I lost communication with a lot of my folk, and didn't hear from my partner. After about 2 weeks, I flew back up to Queensland again to see what was going on. And the moment I landed in Cannes, and the moment anyone saw me, I heard the same story, which is, "Oh my God, what are you doing here?" Um, Everyone thinks you're out in the rainforest raising an Aboriginal army to attack the set. You've got to get out of here. If they see you, they'll arrest you, or it'll affect your pay or play deal. There was a huge paranoia. So I grabbed my partner. We grabbed a hire car, drove out of Cairns, trying to find a safe place to hole up. And through a series of circumstances, ended up out in the fucking rainforest, living with a bunch of tribal people, and it unfolded that way.
absolutely brilliant. Got to talk about obviously Color Out of Space. Another fabulous film, but absolutely blew my mind when I first saw it because I knew the story. Obviously, H.P. Lovecraft. I'd seen The Curse, so I'd seen an adaptation of it, which was at the time I enjoyed it, but then Color Out of Space came along, and my God, what an adaptation! Completely on the money.
Thank you, sir. Again, it's a labor of love. I adore Lovecraft's work, as most people know by now.
Yeah, because it wasn't it your mum who'd introduced you to H.P. Lovecraft as well?
Yeah, it was my mum's fault pretty much because she claimed Lovecraft was her favorite author. And as a result, I learned to prize his material as a kid, and she hated August Derleth, and so I'm very quick to tell me which stories were real Lovecraft and which stories were imitations. And I guess this put the hook in me as as an 8-year-old. And I imagine by the time I was 10 or 11, I'd probably discovered the Chaosium Call of Cthulhu role-playing game and become a very snotty Cthulhu nerd kid. And probably around the age of 12 or 13, the thought would have occurred to me for the first time that we should try to adapt Color Out of Space into a movie. Again, because it's in a single location, the Gardner farm. Even as a
Yeah.
13-year-old, I could imagine how the Gardner farm could easily be in, say, the Hex River Mountains in South Africa, where I was growing up, and how one could possibly shoot a story like that. And yeah, I walked around a number of reservoirs in South Africa thinking about Color Out of Space, but it wasn't until years and years later that the opportunity arose.
I mean, well, how did it come about, anyways? The making of the film, because
Um,
obviously things had gone pear-shaped with Island Dr. Moreau, which will have put you on the back foot a little bit about working, making a film again. I imagine.
yeah, at that point, I had no intention of making another movie. So yeah, basically pretty much walked away from the film industry and yeah, was making a new life for myself here in the south of France. And very much plugged into the local history and the local yeah, magical and paranormal traditions. And somewhere in the middle of all this, basically we got the dumb idea to shoot a short movie. This dumb idea came from a glow-in-the-dark Ouija board that we'd bought from Toys R Us. And we're screwing around with this fluorescent glow-in-the-dark Ouija board. The three of us. We asked the Ouija board what to do. The Ouija board said that we should make a short film, that we should make Mother of Toads, make Mother of Toads. And I didn't know what that was. So I found out it was a short story by Clark Ashton Smith. I read the short story. The Ouija board instructed me how to adapt it. Then David Gregory from Severin Films gave us 20 grand to shoot the Mother of Toads segment, which ended up in a film called The Theatre Bazaar. Everyone was so happy with the opening segment that they flew out to the south of France to where I was living to visit the location. And David from Severin also at that point interviewed me for the publicity material to and the for Theatre Bazaar. And when he interviewed me, he asked me what happened. What happened on the island of Dr. Moreau, and how did I end up on this mountain in the south of France? So I told him. The interview I gave to David at that point in time became the backbone of Lost Soul. I didn't realize it, but he went off and spent another 2 years tracking down all the different people to check because as usual, the story I told was so bizarre
Yeah.
that I guess he had to get second and third opinions, and then next thing you knew, he had a documentary. And the documentary then turned out to be a hit. And the next thing I knew, the folk who had put up the money for Theatre Bazaar said to me, "Well, we're really happy with all of this. I'll tell you what, we'll put up the money for you to shoot a full-length Lovecraft movie." Also, in the course of it, I'd found out that the Clark Ashton Smith story was in public domain. When I found that out, I also realized that pretty much all of Lovecraft's material was in public
Mm.
domain, which opened up the possibility of adapting one of the stories. And at that point in time, I jumped on the opportunity and I said, yes, I really want to make Dunwich Horror. The main guy who was basically writing the check, who was a guy named Daryl Tucker, said, "Well, no, you should do Color Out of Space." And I went, "No, man, I really want to do Dunwich Horror. I want to do the Waitley family." It was like, no, you should do color. Daryl was very insistent it should be color, and I was kind of against it because I thought, how can we make that fresh with a story about a meteorite that hits a farm? It's not just
Yeah,
the curse; it's also like the lonesome death of Geordie Verrill and Peep Show, and
yeah.
pretty much pretty much any movie where a meteorite hits a farm and some guy in dungarees comes out and pokes it with a stick. It's I was initially in a quandary as to how to make that plot line fresh and relevant again. But because I was broke at the time, and Daryl was prepared to pay for a script, I said, "Okay, I'll do that." Sat down and adapted Color Out of Space. By the time I'd finished writing the script, the folk who had asked me to adapt it were themselves broke, unable to make good on the initial promise. But the script had been written, and it floated around, and came into Nic Cage's hands on the set of Mandy. Which the next thing you
Which
knew,
have a very similar kind of. They've got a very similar vibe.
yeah, I guess it was the phase we were going through. It's got a similar color scheme because
Yeah,
at that point in time, the production company that ended up making Color Out of Space was called Hot Pink for Horror. I think, part of our mission statement was to reclaim hot pink for horror as a terrifying color rather than just letting Barbie have it.
I mean, again, color out of space. It looks absolute with some brilliant practical effects, and the CG that's used is excellent as well. Because I find bad CG can take it out of a movie, whereas bad practical effects keep it in a movie. If you know what I mean. I'm not saying Color Out of Space didn't have bad practical effects, but because the practical effects are absolutely excellent in it. But do you know what I'm saying with bad CGI compared to practical effects?
Yeah, and I'm with you, sir. I mean, I'm a fan of both things done well, and I think they aid and abet each other nicely when brought together.
Yeah,
But I'm really deeply disappointed by any movie where the monster turns out to be a fucking cartoon, and that's it.
yeah,
It's like the monster ideally needs to have some kind of sense of existence and to actually be there. I guess it's just yeah, maybe I'm old-fashioned, but I always hope there'll be some kind of practical level to it. I think that's what makes hardware work, even all these years later, is because it's analog. We
mm,
still feel the reality of the shit that's happening. And I still feel some of the blows and the falls, and I like seeing little bits of shrapnel scattering across the floor and things. I can feel it's really going on. There's a that doesn't happen anymore with the world we're in, where things are increasingly a virtual cartoon, and even the action scenes these days are mostly animated. I mean,
yeah.
the
I mean,
difference between seeing, say, two animated trucks colliding and watching Road Warrior is immense.
gunshots is the worst thing because it just looks like mist nowadays after a gunshot hit. Whereas Color Out of Space, the gunshot hits were still nice and gruesome and bloody.
Yeah, I mean, they were real squibs. We squibbed up Nick and we shot him. They we had a old-fashioned peck and par kind of style.
Yeah,
I mean, I used to go and see a lot of bad movies, and it's in here I'm looking at the Bond franchise. In the old days, just because even though the movies were awful a lot of the time, every so often someone would do something genuinely dangerous. There'd be some insane goddamn stunt, which was made up for the next lame 15 minutes because you knew you'd get another stunt sequence. I feel a lot of that's been lost now that everything has been made fully safe.
yeah, yeah.
In the old days, I mean, when I got started, and you can call me a psychopath, but I really believed for the initial part of my career that I hadn't really taken it all the way unless I'd clearly risked my life at least once in the course of the movie. There always needed to be one shot at least that pushed the edge beyond what anyone would think was sane or sensible. Which then I
That's
thought, okay,
brilliant.
yeah, now we've got there. There's a a rock climbing shot in Rites of Passage. That's super dangerous, and yeah, some of the stuff we did in Hardware and Dust Devil, I guess people wouldn't do now, just for yeah, obvious reasons of health and safety. I'm hugely indebted to Stacey Travis for doing so much of her own stunt work, for letting me set her on fire, allowing me to throw her through plate glass windows, which I'm amazed we did those things. I'm amazed that Stacey yeah did such an excellent job under the circumstances when she's hanging on to the power line outside. In Hardware, she's not wearing a harness. She's doing it with on her own strength. It isn't as
Yeah.
far down as it should be, but at the same time, she actually actively refused a safety harness on that day. And yeah, it's a real sidewinder still with its original venom that crawls into the lead lady's hair in Dust Devil in the one
Yeah.
shot. Yeah, and again, there was trust that the the sidewinder would not bite, which I'm sure we would not do those things now in the 21st century. But
No,
that was
definitely not.
yeah,
The how was it working with Nicolas Cage?
yeah. Nick was magnificent. Big thumbs up for Nick. Um, Nick was the antithesis to all of the bad things I'd heard about Hollywood and all of my experiences on Dr. Moreau. I mean, on
Yeah.
yeah, Dr. Moreau, the production lost something like 44 shooting days just because the lead cast members refused to come or refused to
Because Val
actually,
Kilmer was being a bell end.
yeah, and they would have these wars where Val wouldn't come unless Brando was there first. Brando wouldn't come unless Val was there first, and so there was just day after day where the cast members wouldn't show up. Nick, on the other hand, was always there like 10 minutes early, and boom,
Yeah.
ready to go. Full of energy, fully aware of the material already with his take on what he wanted to do. And usually, that would play out. We would adjust on the second take. Usually on around take three, we would have it. It was usually very, very early, very quick. He'd do something, we'd compensate, and then boom, probably around take 3 or 4, we'd have something great. The whole crew were on point because it was Nick, and as a result, everyone was working at their optimum. What I discovered is we got ahead of schedule for the first time in my career in feature films. We got not only ahead of schedule, we got really far ahead of schedule. And in fact, we wrapped the entire main unit a day early as a result, which is, yeah, I think
Yeah, you don't
testimony
hear
to,
that often.
yeah, testimony to Nick's energy and professionalism and how much he brought with him, and his wild ability to improvise, because Nick's always got another version, another 10 versions. And yeah, some of the stuff that we did in alternative takes, I think, is out there on YouTube. There's an alternative take with one of the arguments with Jolie and the kid upstairs in the bedroom, which I really like, which where Nick plays half the take on his head. He decided to do a headstand halfway through. She's saying, "Are you all right?" He's saying, "Yeah, I'm fine. I feel great. In fact, I could do a headstand," and flips and then does the second half of the scene on his on his head. Now, remember the tension was set. The first AD looking at me, and everyone going, "Is this according to book?" Eventually, somebody got sent over from the production office saying, "Are we not insured for this? Can you get him the right way up? What's happening? Why is Nick upside down?"
Oh, that's brilliant. Oh, Nic Cage standing on his head. Oh man, It sounds like you had what that Colour Out of Space has been one of the most fun you've had on a film set.
Yeah, the shooting itself was glorious. I mean, it's I love it when a plan comes together. And it's really nice when things work. I mean, the first lead up to it was hairy because it was a very cheap movie. I mean, despite what it will tell you on IMDb, the reality was we had a spend of around 3.5, 3.8 million USD, which we got to spend in below the line, not counting Nic's fee. Nic took 1 million USD off the top. And yeah, shooting in Portugal. Nic was only available from the last week in January, and we had a tiny slot. Otherwise, we were going to lose him for 2, 3 years, and the production would probably collapse. So we had to shoot
Yeah,
in that window. We got the news somewhere in like early December, so it meant that building the Gardner farm and getting everything prepped and finding all the people would have to happen over Christmas. New Year on a low budget, which is the most preposterous time of year to try to achieve anything. So the lead up to it was frantic. Even a few days before we shot, I was still trying to lock down effectively my leading lady, the Madeline Arthur, who ended up playing Lavinia, was the last to join the cast. Mostly because the original lady we had in line dropped out at the last moment. It was
ah,
originally Maddie Ziegler was cast as Lavinia, and she dropped out to
I
do West
recognise
Side
that name.
Story. But so it left us of a hole in the cast at the last minute. And
Yeah,
like myself as Skull Island, I remember thinking I was going to have to go into Lisbon and find an American tourist or a shoplifter or someone and try and
but
coerce
do you
them
know
to
something? It worked out well because she was great in the
She was
film.
great. Yeah, she was absolutely great. It ended up saving the movie for me. I could have played the whole movie off Maddie's eyes, and even though Nic was magnificent, I found myself in the edit favoring Maddie's reactions to Nic over Nic most of the time because she was just so fabulous, and like Maddie's eyes, like Stacey's eyes in Hardware, I think was something that for me gives the whole movie its center.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it is excellent. Is there any chance we're going to see Dunwich Horror?
There's every chance you're going to see Dunwich Horror. It's still going and it's on its own long strange journey. But
Oh,
at this
excellent.
yeah, I mean it's been coming a lot of my life at this point in time. So like Island of Dr. Moreau, it has a sort of will to live.
Yeah,
And the intention and the way it's going is I do want to shoot it in Lovecraft country. I would like to shoot the entire movie on location in
yeah,
New England, Massachusetts. This entails basically I think it's possible to create Arkham out of existing locations because
yes,
Lovecraft's Arkham's a fictional location, but it's made out of real places. A lot of those real places still exist. Like I think Butler Hospital in Providence, Rhode Island, where Lovecraft's parents both died in the insane asylum, is the Arkham Asylum.
mm,
I've sat on the gravestone and looked at the tree in the graveyard growing out of the graves described at the beginning of The Unnameable. It's the same place, and I do believe that a lot of um, a lot of Brown University and the Brown University campus, in particular the Applied Mathematics building, which is a beautiful building, stands in extremely well for Miskatonic. So I would like to be the first Lovecraft movie to be shot on location in the real place, because to me it seems strange that Lovecraft is all about place,
yeah,
and the actual mood and intensity, the genius loci of the place. And all of the adaptations are always like shot in San Diego or Portugal or
Yeah, because I think the last version I can remember was the Dean Stockwell, was it Sandra Dee version from the 70s?
there is that one. Yeah, I try not to think about it too much, but that did happen. Dean Stockwell kind of did it twice because he came back and made another Dunwich Horror even worse a bunch of years later. So he got to be Wilbur Whateley and Professor Armitage, and I don't know why that happened, but neither existing adaptation really resemble the original story much at
No,
all. They seem to have gone very, very far away from the material. My intention at this point is to do not one but two movies. There's an economic reason for it, which is that I don't believe we'll ever be able to get more than say about 3.5 million USD in terms of our actual production spend, any more than we
yeah,
had on color. That's the most money I've ever been given for a movie. So the rather than trying to make an unwieldy 6 million or 7.5 million USD Dunwich Horror, the current plan is to make two approximately 3 million USD smaller movies to make a Dunwich and a Dunwich Horror.
yeah.
That way around, the first movie gives me a chance to concentrate exclusively on Wilbur Whateley, on Wilbur's bizarre conception, birth, childhood, and eventually coming to Arkham to confront Professor Armitage to gain access to the book, to the Necronomicon. It's a film which takes us into Arkham. It takes us into Miskatonic University. It introduces us to the Miskatonic faculty, and it also opens the book, shows us the Necronomicon, and gives us the dread names of the Lovecraftian pantheon for the first time. So I feel it's important that it be done,
Yeah.
and that it be done right. I think a lot of other folk feel the same way. There's a lot of vested interests in Dunwich's forward progress. I'm very much hoping that if not at the end of this year, very soon to be able to move forward.
Oh, excellent. I really look forward to that. And going forward after Dunwich and Dunwich Horror, what you fancying? Anything else in your hat of tricks?
Well, there's always life out there. I mean, right now, Dunwich is the apple of my eye, but some part of me still wishes that I could get back into the hardware universe and create a spiritual follow-up to it,
Because
because
there was going to be a sequel at one point, wasn't there?
there's an aborted hardware sequel which deserves to live, and for any number of reasons. I mean, the biggest one being that it's still cogent, that the same issues sadly still apply. I still think it's on message, and the message still needs to be
Yeah,
effectively delivered. Um, Sadly, the world and the hardware universe continue to converge, and hardware one never gets out of the apartment much, and so doesn't have a chance to give you much of a sense of the world the people are in. And I would like to get back into full bore dystopian sci-fi, particularly in this yeah um, AI driven era, because I think that's a topic
yeah.
that's coming up a lot. But beyond just the issues of artificial intelligence and basically the concept of the human race losing its edge on top of the evolutionary ladder, and creating a world, an environment in which we're effectively headed towards extinction. There's hardware is also spot on, I think, in its very dark political message, because hardware is a world where clearly a right-wing government has come to power. They're living
Yeah,
in kind of a dictatorship. Yet nobody in hardware is noticed. None of the characters in Hardware rebel in the slightest, or have any instinct to rebel or to fight the system. Jill's taking her unemployment checks, and they're all trying to get money from wherever they can. But there's no joined up sense of anyone having a better idea or any way of overthrowing or
yeah,
changing the system, which is, I think,
yeah, true.
one of the places where it's fairly prescient, unfortunately. And yeah, a hardware sequel where the droids would be fully functional and fully deployed and acting as an instrument of state policy is something I've always wanted to see. The existing sequel script um, initially follows a Mexican family trying to get across the Rio Grande from Mexico into the US, who and as we progress with them and go past the fences, the landmines, the border wall, and then realize that they're these motion sensitive, heat sensitive yeah, drones patrolling the Rio Grande. We realize that yeah, the US has changed for the darker. I do think it remains a vision that I'd like to see brought to the screen. Hardware falls into the trap of being a movie about a lone droid that's acting crazy and running amok. And I think that's way too easy. I want to see what happens when the droid isn't running amok,
Yeah,
when it's fully functional and doing what it was designed to do, because they kind of are an extension of state policy. They're also a way of morally distancing ourselves from our crimes, just like drones tend to be, of reducing those situations to blips on a screen. I mean, a lot of recent wars, like the conflict in Afghanistan, have largely been fought in this way, with
yeah,
folk killing people at such a remote that none of the different tech boys and people involved for a moment feel that they've got the blood of women and children on their hands, or that they're actually killing those people.
yeah.
So yeah, it's still material that I'd like to get my teeth into if time and tide allow.
That sounds. I hopefully they'll get made. So I look forward to seeing all that. I'm looking forward to Dunwich Horror and Dunwich Horror because, as I say,
Yeah,
thoroughly enjoyed Color Out of Space. Big HP Lovecraft fan. Have been since I was a kid. Obviously read a few stories, mostly because I watched The Reanimator, and then it brought kind of HP Lovecraft into my brain, and I had to go and search out some stories and have a read when I was younger. So yeah, I look forward to seeing Dunwich and Dunwich Horror. Absolutely
yeah,
fantastic. So
it'll take a
just
couple of years.
we're gonna get off. We're gonna get finished soon.
Good stuff.
I've got to ask you, what are your favourite films?
Oh, that's such a tricky question. Given that it depends on my mood, but
Yeah,
I guess these days I've pretty much come down on the idea that my favorite movie of all time is the original King Kong, the original 1934 King Kong by Marion C. Cooper, just for all kinds of reasons. I absolutely adore Marion C. Cooper. I can't believe the guy was a barnstorming biplane pilot who became a war hero in World War One, experimented with putting cameras on the biplane wings, got shot down, ended up in a Russian gulag, escaped, re-enlisted, and then shot feature-length documentaries, initially following Mongolian herdspeople, then an elephant film, Chang, with a big elephant, and then thought, okay, let's do this with a big ape, then realized they couldn't make an ape do those things, and so had to do the whole thing as with miniatures with Willis O'Brien, and then they ended up casting themselves as the biplane pilots, shooting down their own giant ape off the top of the Empire State Building. I can't believe a human being did that. So I'm still worshipping at the altar of Kong, which was the first movie I ever saw. My dad brought home a copy when I was 4 years old. To some extent, it's still the biggest thing that ever happened for me. I still kind of see the original Carl Denham as a role model. So it's kind of stuck in my consciousness. I mean, in more recently and over the rest of my life, I guess, beyond Leone and Argento, I'm a huge Andrei Tarkovsky fan. I often wonder whether Stalker by Andrei Tarkovsky or Mirror might not be the best movie ever made if I have to salvage an example of the medium from the pile of cinema history. And in short form, I'll go down with Kong. Kong
No,
on top.
hey, it's a superb film, and is without a doubt up there as one of the greatest films of all time.
Yeah, I mean, to me, Kong on top of the Empire State Building, clutching Fay Ray is an image that I think is more powerful to me than the crucifixion. Whenever I see Christ on the cross, I don't feel much. But whenever I see Kong climbing the Empire State Building, I get choked up and I feel emotionally engaged. It has an iconic nature to it that makes me dewy-eyed even at my terrible old age.
You wouldn't go that far, should I say. Well, I think we've went through everything, and it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. And I'd love you to come back sometime for another chat if you'd be up for that.
I always so. Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. It's a quiet night here in the French Pyrenees, and it's been very nice chatting.
Oh, thank you very much. Well, we'll say good night and God bless. We've been the Carlisle Cult Cinema Club. I've been PD. That's been Richard Stanley.
Super.
What an absolute legend for being here. Thank you.
Pleasure is all mine, sir. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ryan Kruger. I'm the director of Fry Barry in Street Trash. This is Barry. You also may know him as 2-Bit in Street Trash. You're watching the Carlisle Cult Cinema Club. Subscribe and like Facebook social media pages.